Wow, what a time, everyone, especially if you're a fan of both things and or stuff, because the Comic-Con in New York City is chock full of tidbits and exciting information, exciting news, and some things that some people might not find so exciting. But today I'm here to talk to you because, well, Star Trek released a few trailers, teasers, pieces of information that are getting fans in an uproar, both good and bad, I might assume, but I really haven't seen much reaction either way thus far. So I really just want to talk about the three main shows. And really only one of them is what I'm sitting here to talk about primarily. But they gave a new teaser for Prodigy. They gave a new teaser for Discovery, and they gave a new teaser for, of course, the third season of Picard. That's the one that probably has the most tidbits of information that people are going to find at least intoxicating for one reason or another, either full of hate or full of love. I don't really see this being a very neutral thing. People are either going to love it or hate it, and some people may not care because they've already given up on the show. So I do want to mention that I do like Prodigy for the most part. The trailer for that was fine. There's a couple pieces of information in there that were cool. Apparently Jellicoe is coming back. That's always fun to see a guest star from the original return in the same role because, you know, this makes the universe seem like a more cohesive place. We also saw who I believe to be a Denobulan and some other characters and, you know, the Borg and things like that. So the only thing I'm hoping for this show, because I am very much enjoying it, especially the Voyager aspects of it and the Federation Starfleet-y feeling things, the only thing I hope is that based on the experiences the crew went through at the end of, I don't think it was a season finale. I think it was a mid-season finale, but it's been months since the show's been on. I do hope that our characters have grown and matured a little bit, because the only thing that was a little off to me was the gradingness of the characters. Now, while I understand this show was made and intended for a younger age, for a more childlike mental capacity, I do think that children can enjoy a slightly more sophisticated Star Trek. So I hope we get away from that spastic young character sort of thing that we got, at least in the beginning. That aside, I do think the trailer for that looked interesting. Not too much to say about that. Then we had Discovery. Honestly, there was nothing in the Discovery trailer that really interested me all that much. It was a lot of personal character interactions, a lot of explosions, some space motorbike thing. You know, nothing that really showed me what they're going to do in this season. Now, I do know some behind the scenes stuff. They're saying that there's going to be this big centuries old mystery they're uncovering. I personally think they might be going with the Iconians. I kind of don't want them to do that because I think personally that functions much better as an unsolved mystery. There's some things that give this air of deep history to a universe that as soon as you uncover them, as soon as you explain them, the same thing with a lot of horror movies. The first half, the first 3/4 are fantastic. They're filled with suspense, but as soon as you give that explanation, they fall flat because I guess the realization of what it actually is never going to do justice to the grand mystery that you have built up in your mind. So I do not want them to ever fully explain in canon the Iconians, even though to me, they're a fascinating ancient mystery that I would love to get more tidbits on. But if that's really the route they're going to go, I really don't think I want to see that because it's going to, in the end, no matter how fantastic the season is, and I have my doubts on whether or not it's going to be fantastic either way, but no matter how fantastic the story turns out to be, I do believe it's going to take away some of that fun and that mystery. The same thing with like if Stargate came back and they decided to do a season-long mystery revealing who the Furlings are. The fact that we've spent so much time with them built up in our minds as this mysterious fifth race that we've never encountered anything other than maybe some lost writings and hints of. If they were to do a season-long arc where we finally uncovered that mystery and met them, I think that would do a disservice to that grand scale of a show as well, because we solved something that used to be a fun what if, and now where do we go from there? It's just kind of, you know, the fun dies down, the balloon is burst, and meh. We've got an answer. Even if it's a fantastic answer, well, there you have it. That's it. But I could be wrong. It could be something completely different. The other thing I did notice is there's some Daft Punk helmet looking things. I think personally we might be seeing the Breen. I would think, honestly, they would be in Picard, especially since Terry hinted at a lot of long forgotten Star Trek species or races we haven't seen in a while, and that could be one of them. But who knows? Maybe they'll appear in both shows. Getting to the meat of this was the Star Trek Picard trailer. Now, I'm not going to get into every single aspect of it. We finally saw a shot, at least, of every single returning character, including Brent Spiner, who is seemingly playing Lore. Now, that isn't necessarily the case. He looks like Lore. I believe Geordi refers to him as such, or at least says the name Lore, and it's intercut with this character. So, is it the real Lore? We don't know, but at least there'll be some allusions to and a character based on Lore, even if it's some sort of counterfeit or somebody pretending to be Lore, a hologram, whatever. But it does appear that at least one of the characters Brent Spiner is playing will be Lore. Probably another soon, possibly even some sort of flashback or hologram or memory or reincarnation of Data. Who knows at this point? So that is good confirmation on who we are getting Brent Spiner to play. We also got the revelation of two of the other villains, one of whom looks a little interesting. I don't really know much to say about her. She looks a little bit to me like a half and half, a cross between Arpy from Mr. Mayor, whatever that show is on NBC with Ted Danson, across from Arpy from that show, and the bad guy, forgive me, I can't remember his name, but the bad guy Gary Oldman played in The Fifth Element. To me, it looks like a mashup of those two people playing this main villain. And the other returning character, which hurts my heart a little bit because I had this whole video scripted out on who I wanted to see return to Picard, which I haven't released yet, Moriarty. Moriarty is coming back to Picard. Out of the 7 characters that were not announced to return to Picard, he was high up on my list because I thought there was so much more we could plumb with that character. And he is coming back, and the way they introduced him, still in sort of period-appropriate clothing. He had some sort of old-fashioned gun. I'm not sure what that was because it was very blink and you miss it. And I'm kind of just doing this off the cuff after only watching each thing once. But yeah, I've really been wanting to see him. I thought he could fit perfectly in with the storylines around artificial sentient life, especially the hologram version that we learned from in Voyager with Robert Picardo's doctor, who potentially could be showing up in one form or another, maybe not as a doctor, but as Dr. Zimmerman or another holographic version of the Doctor. Who knows? I think that could be a small fit, even if it is a little cameo. However, that also leads me to 2 other characters I had high on my list who I thought really should return in some capacity in Picard, and they are still not announced or shown in this trailer, and that is Reginald Barclay and Dr. Pulaski. Now, Reginald Barclay fits a hell of a lot better with this theory than Pulaski, but let me talk about Barclay first a little bit. In the second episode, where we saw Moriarty, where he was kind of trapped and put in this hollow cube to live out his existence, unknowing that he wasn't in the real world, and that's the last we saw of him, kind of in this cube on a desk. Maybe the cube was sent to the Daystrom Institute. Perhaps Lore somehow got a hold of it and released him. Maybe after this whole artificial life form rights thing happened, it was decreed by some high Federation law that he needed to be released because, he now had rights, something along those lines. Maybe even Barclay did it. Perhaps he had some sort of feelings going on and he decided, you know what, I'm going to release this guy. Or, and I really doubt this is actually what's going on, but what if all of this is taking place inside that holocube? What if all of the characters and all of these storylines and all of this progression that we've seen going on since, old-time Star Trek went off the new Trek, I guess, at least in the Picard era shows. I don't know if they would do this with Discovery and things like that. But what if all of this Picard stuff is taking place inside the holocube version of Moriarty's life? That is to say, when they put him in this fake artificial world, they programmed every last aspect of all the next generation people that he would have encountered up to that point. So basically, they created a duplicate Federation, a duplicate of everything they knew, and just let some sort of algorithm run a program based on who knows what, but it differs from the real world Federation that's going on in the actual original Star Trek timeline. So what if all of Picard has taken place inside this virtual reality and none of the characters we're meeting and have interacted with and have seen are actually the real world Star Trek versions? I know that's a long shot, and I'm going to work on this theory a little bit because I think that could help address, well, it could solve a problem and it could create a problem. I think it could solve the problem of all the people feeling like Picard is bastardized Star Trek canon and has done things to characters they don't like and, yada, yada, yada. Q's dead, all that stuff. It could also create a problem because all the people that are enjoying this would feel like they've just wasted their time and there's no point to it. Either way, I think that could be a fascinating way to look at things. What if we end the series finding out? I guess that would essentially be like everything is a dream, but at the same time, I don't know. To me, I personally think that could be a fascinating glimpse into an alternate reality that isn't really an alternate reality. And who knows, perhaps some of these characters could escape into the real world at the end of this program, and then we've got all sorts of duplicates. Does that mean there's 4 Rikers out there? We've got Will Riker, Thomas Riker, computer-generated Will Riker, computer-generated Thomas Riker. We could almost have enough Rikers to man the bridge of their own ship. We could have the Titan with just Riker, and then let's throw in the 2 Troys. And my God, that would be a fascinating show that would never happen, and nobody would ever think that's a good idea except me. Anyways, moving on. Sorry. I said the 2 characters, Barclay, and then the second one was Pulaski. The only reason, I think it would be great to at least get a reference to Pulaski in the first place because she was such a main component to the early Star Trek TNG cast, and then she disappeared and was referenced, I think, a grand total of 1 time after her disappearance. But if you recall, the original appearance of Moriarty dealt heavily with Pulaski. She was incredibly involved with that. She spent the most time with Moriarty. She was the one who Moriarty came to know the future through. There was all sorts of interaction and relationship between Moriarty and Pulaski. And when Moriarty came back, I don't think she was even referenced. If he has come back into the grand fold of things, I have to imagine at some point he would have tracked her down, she would have tracked him down, or there would have been some reference to her, or someone would have realized there was a connection. I don't know. I may be spitballing here, and I don't think Diana Muldaur would want to come back at this point based on what she's had to do with Star Trek since, because apparently it wasn't such a good environment for her. But I think that if we're bringing back Moriarty, the 2 characters who are not confirmed to have the most relationship to him would be Barclay and Pulaski. And I think both of those characters should at least get a reference, if not a cameo or more, in this last season of Picard as a grand send-off to the Next Generation era, as well as some other characters I haven't mentioned. Chief among those, obviously, O'Brien, and then others, Rolaren, things of that nature, Guinan, who we've already seen, Wesley Crusher, who we've already seen in the last season, so their exclusion from this season won't feel quite as lacking because we have spent a little time with them. Those are my thoughts from what I saw in a couple of trailers today. Obviously, I'm going to have more thoughts. I'm going to watch this stuff. I'm going to look more into it. But what did you think? Tell me all your thoughts below. Did you think this blew it out of the water? Did you think there's still lacking entirely? Do you think Picard's going to be disaster? What do you think of Prodigy? I'm curious to think, does anyone enjoy Prodigy besides me that's not a child? And do you think Discovery is going to do the Iconians, or do you think it's going to fall flat on his face? Whatever, just tell me all your thoughts down below. Leave a like, do all those things. And until next time, and this means even more today because of Moriarty, but computer and program.